Donald Trump is more popular today than he was on August 13th in either 2020 or 2016. So the bottom line is, yes, Kamala Harris is doing better in the polls, but there's a long way to go. The polls can shift, and Donald Trump is more popular than he was at either 2016 or 2020 at this point.
In this video, Kamala Harris gets bad news when new polling data shows the true reality of her campaign. This is the DeVory Darkins Show. Okay, I'm sure you guys have heard it 1,000 ways to Sunday that she is up in the polls, and let's just call bull on that because it was just 3 weeks ago, even a month ago, where she was polling just as bad as President Biden. And now all of a sudden the media wants us to believe she is crushing Trump when it comes to the polls. Well, good news is we like to do our research and we like to post the truth on this channel. So in this video, new polling data exposes where she's truly at in this campaign and how this is bad news for her because she's not where she truly needs to be if she wants to win this election. So without further ado, let's play that clip.
I want to take a step back and sort of point out we've kind of been here before. So August 13th, how far were the polls off in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin? And this is in 2016 and 2020. Trump was estimated both times around and by significant margins. Take a look here. In 2016, the average poll in those states that I mentioned, those Great Lake battleground states, Trump was underestimated by 9 points on average at this point in 2016. How about 2020? It wasn't a one-off. Look at this. He was underestimated by 5 points on average. And of course, Kamala Harris's advantage in those New York Times Siena College polls were 4 points in each of these key battleground states, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. The bottom line is this. If you have any idea, if you're a Kamala Harris fan and you want to rip open the champagne bottle, pop that cork, do not do it. Donald Trump is very much in this race. If we have a polling shift like we've seen in prior years from now until the final result, Donald Trump would actually win. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I am saying that he is very much in this ballgame based upon where he is right now and compare that to where he was in prior years.
We certainly heard the Harris campaign saying we have to keep fighting.
Absolutely.
This is definitely not over. All right. Let's talk about enthusiasm and how that translates actually. We are quite a ways out, again, 3 months about.
Yeah, you know, yesterday I was mentioning, the enthusiasm for the Democratic ticket was up. Yep. But that enthusiasm is not the same thing as going out to actually vote. And there's a different question, which essentially says, how certain are you actually going to go out and vote? And this is the top range. Almost certain to vote. Again, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. This is among registered voters. Look at this. Look at Kamala Harris now compared to where Joe Biden was back in May. In fact, 62% of Joe Biden voters said they were almost certain to turn out and vote. Now,
it's gone down.
It's actually gone down a little bit. I would call this in the same general area at 61%. But it's basically unchanged. And look at Donald Trump. He was at 58% in May. He's actually gone up a little bit now. He's at 60% now. Again, basically no real change. So the bottom line here is, yes, there may be more enthusiasm for Kamala Harris, but the fact is we're not seeing that necessarily translate in the almost certain vote. And one little other note, Sarah, I will note this. Donald Trump is more popular today than he was on August 13th in either 2020 or 2016. So the bottom line is, yes, Kamala Harris is doing better in the polls, but there's a long way to go. The polls can shift. The almost certain to vote hasn't actually shifted, and Donald Trump is more popular than he was at either 2016 or 2020 at this point.
Wow. Right? I mean, it just shows you how misleading the media can be. They've been telling everybody that she's been crushing him in the polls, and she has not. In fact, she's behind. Remember, 9 and 5. So they underestimated President Trump back in 2016 by 9 points. Then they underestimated him by 5 points in 2020. Right now, it's a dead heat, meaning they're basically tied when it comes to the polling data. Like, she's only up by maybe 1 or 2 points at most on average. And so this is really bad news for her campaign because she needs to grow a larger lead if she truly wants to win the election, because this brings me to the second point. More people are going to vote for President Trump than they did in 2020 and 2016. That counts for something, right? And so there's going to be a lot of people who don't know Kamala Harris, don't understand what her policies are, which means they may not even show up to vote for her. And if RFK Jr. is on the ballot, that is not a good look for her either. And number 3, even though the media has been telling people to be scared of President Trump, that he is a threat to democracy, it is not actually reflected in the polls. He is now more popular than he's ever been at 44%. That is massive if you think about back in 2016 when he was at 33%. I mean, that is a 11-point swing right there. So, at the end of the day, the media is going to say what they're going to say because they are propaganda news channels, but the numbers tell the true story. And polls obviously can be wrong. They can be off, which is why they call it a margin of error, which is why CNN still will not say that she's a clear leader. Let's take a look at that.
We showed you polls at the top of the program for 3 battleground states showing Kamala Harris up by 4 percentage points in each. Now, we should point out that they are all within the margin of error, which range actually from 4 to 4.5 points. So they are still technically tied.
But, part of the discussion over the course of this last 10 months has been about young voters, whether they can sort of overcome some of this frustration that they have, particularly around the Gaza issue. And I'm wondering if you see, John, that these young voters see Vice President Harris as aligned with Joe Biden. Does she carry that burden, I guess, that Joe Biden has had with young voters over the Gaza issue? Or do they see her as a clean slate? You sort of touched on this, but I'm wondering if you're seeing that in your conversations.
I think we get a much better answer to that question when people return to campus in just a few weeks, which is why I think the vice president has a tremendous opportunity with the Democratic convention next week to try to tee this up. There were 2 big reasons. Young voters in my travels over the last year were just apathetic about Biden. They agree with him on the abortion issue, LGBTQ rights, the climate, and other things. They're mad, furious, angry about Palestine. They think the president has green-lighted a lot of Israeli conduct that they find reprehensible. But they also had no connection to him because of his age. No connection at all. The younger part, the vibrant part, seeing the vice president out there, her deciding to go on a TikTok, that has helped. Is it enough? That's the question. For the younger voters who have made the Israel-Hamas conflict a cause, that's her challenge. How do you get enough of them back? Because you know the numbers. And Arab-American voters. But Michigan, Georgia, one of the reasons those states went Democratic are younger voters. She's made progress. Is it enough? Big question.
No, she probably hasn't made enough. I mean, let's just keep it real. People do not know who she is. People do not know what she stands for. And she's yet to come out with an official press conference and say what she's going to do about the Hamas and Israel war. That's just number one. Number two, she's yet to come out and clearly articulate how she's going to bring down the cost of everything when it comes to younger people. I mean, think about an 18-year-old today versus an 18-year-old 40 years ago. 18-year-old today, I mean, they can't make enough money to do anything. This is why we have more people living with their parents than any time in history. I think the number was about 45 to 48% of Gen Z is living at home with their parents, and they're living at home with their parents up to the age, on average, of 27 years old. This is not the economy that is very friendly, so she needs to answer for that. And if she doesn't, she's going to have this problem that Mark Murray pointed out on MSNBC.
With young people, is there any data on that?
So what's interesting is that young voters and also ended up black voters didn't change all that much between where Biden was in Pennsylvania in July and where Harris is now. Independents did move in Harris's direction.
Yeah, so independents, these swing voters, younger people, black men, they're not moving towards Harris because of her weaknesses. She has yet to speak at a press conference, like I keep saying. She's served in the administration already for 3.5 years. Christ, she is the vice president. So when she's creating ads and going to a rally and talking about, yeah, I'm going to fix the economy, I'm going to lower costs, why didn't you do that during your administration? In fact, you're the person that caused it when she was the tie-breaking vote for the Inflation Reduction Act. That is something that is on her record. She cannot hide from that, but she's trying to, of course. Then she says, oh yeah, I'm going to be tougher on the border than President Trump. President Trump doesn't care about the border. Lady, you're the reason why the border is open. You were in charge of the border. I mean, this is the type of gaslighting that I believe younger people and a lot of independents out there are not buying. It's not enough to just smile and laugh and tell jokes and be joyful and think that's going to get a vote. It isn't. Just because people are more enthusiastic to vote doesn't mean they're going to vote for her. So again, the propaganda media channels, they're going to obviously make you feel like she's so far ahead and President Trump does not have a chance in the world when the numbers tell a different story. But again, if you were to go on CNN and say something like this, you'd probably get this reaction.
Well, I must have missed where Democrats called her a bum. I must have missed where they questioned her ethnicity. I must have missed when Democrats called her low IQ and stupid, and all of the litany of awful insults that Donald Trump has levied against Kamala Harris since she's been in the race.
But did you
let's
miss
not
when she
forget that
couldn't even
he's
get
not-
a couple
she-
percentage points in 2020 to make it to the first primary?
This isn't the first time Donald
She wasn't
Trump has-
wildly popular.
It doesn't matter. She's the vice president of the United States, and she's beating Donald Trump right now. So, but what also we are
All
not,
that matters is what
also
happens
we're
on
forgetting
November 5th.
is that Donald Trump's history of insulting women is very long. As a matter of fact,
And her history of
long-
failing
it's
is long as well when it comes
and
to these
documented
policies that
how many
matter.
times when he was at the bully pulpit, he insulted women
what we know is
journalists
that this-
repeatedly, including you, Abby, who he also called stupid, which you're not. You went to Harvard, and you are far from that. And this is what Donald Trump does. He doesn't like to be held accountable. So because he is now in a position where he now is being held accountable for what he said, we know already that he has a history of being a sexist, and now he cannot
This is base
grapple with the
management.
fact.
These are not the arguments that are actually effective for Kamala Harris.
Oh,
If you
no?
look at the
Why is
recent,
she up
for
11
example,
points?
Reid Hoffman's group Blueprint has described what is effective for Kamala Harris. What is effective for her is taking positions that are the positions that would be endorsed by Joe Manchin and by Bernie Sanders, being perfectly down the line. I will protect Social Security and Medicare. It is not actually attacking Trump. What you guys are doing right now is, helpful
Pointing out the
base
facts.
management right now, but it actually isn't something that moves the needle.
I'm
What
just
you see is
repeating-
actually this kind of
we're
base
just pointing out
management
facts.
doesn't actually
actually
have
an
much of a
interesting-
material effect. Anti-Trump arguments
Wait a
are
minute.
actually so played
it
out, so
doesn't-
tired.
Yeah, I mean, he makes a very good point. This whole anti-Trump rhetoric has gone stale, right? People are exhausted by it. That's why people were exhausted at the idea that it was going to be Joe Biden versus Trump, because all Joe Biden ever did when we did see him is tell us how much of a threat to democracy President Trump is. And now that he's dropped out of the race, or he was kicked out of the race, and he's no longer running, we don't even know where he is, by the way, but I digress. People are just tired of that conversation. They want to hear, what are we going to do for the American people? And if you listen to the Trump and Elon Musk interview, he laid that out in a very calm, collective manner with Elon Musk last night. I'll link that video in the description below for you guys to take a look if you haven't seen it. But anyways, Kamala Harris hasn't done that yet. She has not explained, how am I going to take the country from point A to point B? And the Democrats are making a fatal mistake, in my opinion. The reason why we are here where we're at, where it is Kamala Harris versus President Trump, is because they were so obsessed with trying to prosecute President Trump over the last 3.5 years that they forgot about their own party. They did not make sure that they had a candidate that would be prepared, ready, and had already had a base going into this election. They did not see that President Biden was going to get greedy or power hungry and say, you know what, I'm going to run for election again. They didn't see that because they were so focused on President Trump. And that's why the propaganda media channels are in full scale trying to get people to believe that she is the right person for the president. But the numbers are going to scream to people, especially when the debate comes around and she starts answering questions and people really get up to vote. They're going to go back to how they feel. And right now, the economy, inflation, and immigration is where she fails every single time. So that's my mindset. What about you? What do you guys think about the fact that they've been wrong on the polling data when it comes to President Trump in 2016 and 2020, and she's not where she needs to be? She's actually behind. She needs to be ahead 6, 7, 8, 9 points at least if she truly wants to win this election. What do you also think about the fact that the swing voters, especially young voters, are not sold on her yet? And what do you think about the fact that the media just can't help but to attack Trump and not talk about what the facts really are? Well, let me know what your answers are and more in the comment section below. Thank you for checking out the video today. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Stay grateful, stay focused, and stay true. Peace.